I'd lost my job in hospitality, and after months of searching, I was desperate for any work I could find. That's when I stumbled across an online listing for a cruise ship job. They advertised it as a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, great pay, free travel, and the chance to work aboard a luxury liner. It sounded perfect, almost too perfect. But with bills piling up, I convinced myself this was my lucky break. The hiring process was fast. After a brief video interview, they sent a contract to sign and a ticket to Miami, where I would board. A part of me thought it was odd they didn't ask many questions, but I was eager to escape my rut. I boarded a plane, hoping this would be the fresh start I needed. When I arrived at the port, I noticed a handful of others, all looking a bit lost but excited, waiting to board. We were quickly herded onto the ship by a man in an unmarked uniform. He checked our names off a list and then led us down a narrow corridor, away from the bustling passenger area. They assigned us rooms, cramped, windowless cabins. It wasn't what I expected, but I figured it must be temporary until we got settled. As soon as the door shut, though, it locked from the outside. I tried the handle, confused, but it wouldn't budge. I banged on the door, but no one answered. Hours went by, then days. They brought food and water at strange intervals, always delivered by silent, expressionless guards. I couldn't leave, couldn't speak to anyone. My phone was taken, and there was no internet or way to contact anyone back home. I began to realize I wasn't on a luxury liner. I was a prisoner. Finally, after what felt like forever, the ship docked. The guards unlocked the doors, and we were taken off in small groups. They loaded us onto a dark, unmarked van and drove for hours. When we arrived, it wasn't at another cruise port, but an isolated building surrounded by high fences. This was no training facility. It looked more like a prison. Inside, they handed each of us a binder filled with scripted sales pitches. They told us we'd be working as customer service representatives and handed out headsets connected to what looked like a call center system. But the scripts we read weren't about customer service at all. They were designed to trick people into fake investments, technical support scams, and even phishing for personal information. We were forced to memorize them and practice until we could recite them perfectly. Refusal wasn't an option. They watched us constantly. Any sign of resistance was met with cold, calculated threats. They had all our information, our families, our hometowns, and made it painfully clear that if we tried to escape or refused to cooperate, we'd never see home again. I'll never forget the words one guard whispered to me one day. "You're ours now. Your old life doesn't exist." It was chilling, but they made it feel like the truth. If we didn't meet our quotas, the consequences were brutal. Maria, a young woman from my group, once fell short of her daily target, so they took her aside and made an example of her. She was forced to stand for hours with her arms raised, and if she lowered them, they'd hit her with a thick rubber hose. The next day, bruised and exhausted, she whispered to me that she'd been forced to listen to recordings of others being beaten, the screams looping over and over until she broke down. One night, it was my turn. I hadn't met my quota, and the guards dragged me from my seat to a small, dim room. They cuffed my hands behind my back, shoved me to the floor, and kicked me repeatedly. I remember one of them saying, "If you don't work, you don't eat." When I got back to my bunk, bruised and barely able to move, all I could think about was escape. But how? We were isolated, watched at all times, and constantly reminded that any disobedience would be met with more discipline. Then, one day, everything changed. I was sitting at my station, my headset on, reciting one of the scam scripts when I heard a commotion outside. A group of people stormed into the facility, yelling commands and shouting for everyone to put their hands up. My heart raced. I didn't know if this was some twisted new tactic to scare us even more. But then I saw their uniforms. They were police. They moved swiftly, securing the guards and guiding us outside. I'll never forget the look in the eyes of one officer who pulled me up, like he understood everything I'd been through without me saying a word. I felt an overwhelming sense of relief, like waking up from a nightmare that had somehow felt real for far too long. I learned later that these traffickers had been using fake job ads to lure people from all over the world, locking them in this facility to work as scam operators, leveraging desperation for their gain. It was a massive, horrifying operation. I had escaped, but I'd never be the same. Then, after hours of questioning and debriefing by the police, they finally told me I was free to go. They made arrangements for me and the others, who were rescued, to be flown back to our home countries. When I boarded that plane to Singapore, I felt a wave of relief wash over me, but also a profound sadness for those who might never get this chance. I realized just how easy it is to get trapped when you're desperate. If you're ever offered a job that seems like an easy escape from your problems, think twice. These scammers target people at their lowest, using fake promises to reel you in. So, research thoroughly, ask questions, and trust your instincts. No opportunity is worth risking your safety. Stay alert and protect yourself. It could happen to anyone,